Have you ever noticed how our minds can be the noisiest place in the world, even in complete silence? We wake up thinking about what could go wrong, spend the day trying to control what's beyond our reach, and go to sleep with our heads full of what-ifs? But what if I told you this isn't the life God planned for you? That there is a way to trade anxiety for peace, and it starts with a decision that seems simple but few have the courage to make. What I'm about to share might go against everything you've learned about being responsible or in control of your life. Because the truth is, full control is an illusion, and trying to hold on to it is exactly what feeds worry. The key to living in rest is not predicting every scenario but learning to truly surrender every situation into the hands of the one who already knows the end of the story. Get ready, because in the next few minutes you'll discover how to transform the way you face challenges. No matter the weight you're carrying right now, there's a way to walk lighter with renewed strength and courage to keep going. And it all begins when you decide to let go, to receive something infinitely greater. Worry is like a silent thief. It sneaks in without permission, and before you realize it, it has stolen your peace, your confidence, and even the courage you once had to face the day. It drains your strength, exhausts your mind, and leaves your heart heavy. Spiritually speaking, it's like trying to carry a burden only God can sustain. And here's the thing, the more you focus on what you fear, the further you get from the rest you long for. Many people don't see that living trapped in worry is like driving while staring only at the rearview mirror. You miss what's ahead and crash into obstacles you were never meant to hit. The Bible shows us that anxiety is, at its core, a shift in focus. Instead of looking at God's care, the person sinks into self-control. And let's be honest, trying to predict every detail of life is the fastest way to burn out inside. The effect isn't only emotional, it's physical too. How many sleepless nights and ruined days have been wasted anticipating problems that never even happened? Worry is like a virus that infects hope and locks down spiritual growth. But there's a lighter way, and it starts with a decision few are willing to make. Surrendering to God is not a symbolic gesture, it's a deep act of trust. It's when someone recognizes they don't have full control and chooses to place into His hands what they cannot solve on their own. Saying, "I trust," is easy. The hard part is letting go of the steering wheel and allowing God's care to guide the way. It's like stepping into the unknown, but knowing His love is the net that will catch you. This surrender is a practical exercise of faith. It's not enough to say pretty words in prayer and then go back to carrying the same weight. You must lay your worries before Him, pray sincerely, and not take back what you left at the altar. For example, if you're anxious about finances, you can pray, ask for direction, and instead of living in constant fear, start acting wisely, trusting that God will open the right doors at the right time. When the surrender is genuine, something changes in the heart. Anxiety gives way to rest, insecurity turns into hope, and fear loses its grip. It's a kind of yielding that doesn't weaken but strengthens. And deep down, this attitude makes space for God's presence and care to do what only they can. But there's a practical tool that keeps this surrender alive day after day. Prayer is like a bridge connecting a weary soul to God's heart. It's where you pour out your anxieties, share your worries, and find real relief. When someone prays sincerely, they're not just speaking, they're surrendering, transferring the weight. It's as if they're saying, "Lord, this is beyond me, but it's not beyond you." And in that moment, His presence starts turning restlessness into peace. Many don't realize prayer is also an exchange, a kind of spiritual transaction. You give Him anxiety and He gives you rest. You hand over fear and He gives you courage. That's why when prayer becomes consistent, faith grows. It's impossible to talk daily with the Creator and remain the same. Even the tone of your voice and the way you face problems start to shift. And the most beautiful thing is that prayer doesn't require a specific place or scripted words. It can be in the quiet of your room, on the way to work, or in a moment of distress on the street. God isn't measuring formality but surrender. And the more your heart gets used to speaking with Him, the more natural it becomes to rest. Especially when you remember there are promises in the Bible to sustain that trust. God's word is clear and direct about anxiety. In 1 Peter 5 verse 7, we find a powerful invitation: "Cast all your anxiety on Him because He cares for you." This is more than a pretty phrase, it's a practical instruction. It's as if God is saying, "Stop carrying it alone, I've got this." This promise is a daily reminder that His care is constant and personal. In Philippians 4 verses 6 to 7, Paul reinforces, "Do not be anxious about anything, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds." Notice that peace comes after prayer and surrender. In other words, it's not instant magic, it's the result of an act of trust. This peace doesn't depend on circumstances changing but on God's presence within them. Jesus was also clear in Matthew 6 verses 25 to 34, teaching not to worry about what to eat, drink, or wear because the Father knows exactly what we need. He points to the birds and flowers as examples of how God's provision is perfect. If He cares for nature in such detail, how much more will He care for those made in His image? That certainty is the foundation for a real transformation in thinking. When someone decides to hand their worries over to God, the first change isn't external but internal. The mind starts to reorganize. The fear that once dictated decisions loses ground to faith, and anxiety gives way to rest. It's like swapping fogged-up glasses for a clear lens. Suddenly what seemed impossible is seen in the light of God's promise and care. This change doesn't happen by accident. It's the result of a conscious process of retraining thoughts. Instead of feeding the mind with negative predictions, the person fills it with spiritual truths. This can happen through daily Bible reading, listening to songs that build trust, or spending time with people who strengthen faith. Each choice is like a drop that day after day fills the reservoir of hope. Here's an important point. Transforming the mind doesn't mean denying reality but seeing it in the light of God's presence. It's looking at the problem and saying, I don't see the way out yet, but I know it's there. And when this mindset takes root, surrender is no longer a one-time moment but a constant posture toward life. Giving things to God isn't something you do once and forget. It's a daily decision, almost like brushing your teeth. Stop doing it and the buildup returns. Every new worry requires the reminder that His care is constant and that anxiety must not reclaim the throne of your mind. It's an exercise in vigilance, where faith and discipline walk hand in hand. Many fall into the trap of thinking that because they prayed yesterday they can carry the burden today. But the spiritual walk is a process and worry is persistent. It knocks at the door every day, and at each knock you must choose, open to fear or open to trust. This choice, repeated countless times, shapes a stronger heart and a more mature faith. Like any habit, the practice of surrender requires small, consistent actions. It could mean starting the day with a short prayer of gratitude, stopping a worried thought with a memorized verse, or even writing on a piece of paper, "This is not mine to carry." These simple acts reinforce that peace is not a rare event but a state that can be cultivated. And when this becomes part of the routine, a pattern emerges that every faithful believer recognizes. The Christian life follows a constant movement, noticing when worry arrives, handing it over to God, and then experiencing peace as a result. This cycle is not a sign of weakness but of spiritual maturity. It's the recognition that even with faith, anxiety can still knock, and the right response is always to surrender to God's care. Each time this cycle repeats, trust grows. It's like strengthening a muscle. At first, surrender feels hard, but with practice, it becomes more natural. Over time, you notice that the gap between the arrival of worry and the coming of peace gets shorter. This doesn't happen because the problems vanish, but because faith learns to act faster. This habit creates an inner security that doesn't depend on circumstances. When others look at you, they might even ask, "How can you stay so calm?" The answer lies in the habit of not storing burdens, of refusing to let anxiety settle in. And beyond strengthening the spirit, this cycle also transforms something very tangible. The body itself starts to feel the effects of this peace. When worry loses its place to God's peace, the whole body thanks you. Muscle tension eases, breathing becomes deeper, and even your heartbeat finds a steadier rhythm. It's as if His presence reorganizes not only the mind but also every cell. And anyone who's experienced it knows, spiritual relief has direct effects on physical health. Less stress means better nights of sleep, more energy upon waking, and even greater mental clarity to make decisions. That constant sense of tiredness begins to fade, replaced by renewed strength. God's care doesn't just manifest in the unseen. It's also visible in the balance of the body and the small improvements of daily life. We can't forget the emotional impact. When the soul is at rest, feelings like anger, impatience, and discouragement lose intensity. It's like trading an internal storm for a clear sky. And in that atmosphere of serenity, hope grows. But what's most remarkable is how this peace changes the way you see each situation, even when nothing external has changed. Trusting in God doesn't mean the problems disappear, but it changes the way you see them entirely. What once looked like an unbreakable wall starts to be seen as an opportunity for growth and maturity. It's as if faith placed a new lens before your eyes, revealing that each challenge might carry a hidden purpose. This renewed perspective also shapes your reactions to difficulties. Instead of despair, patience appears. Instead of rushing, there's trust in God's timing. This is not denial of reality but the understanding that His care is working behind the scenes, even when you can't see it. It's accepting that sometimes, what we ask for isn't what we truly need at that moment. When this mindset takes hold, you begin to see life in a broader way. Small frustrations no longer steal your peace because you're certain God is working all things for good. But to keep this clarity, you must intentionally fill your mind with what is true and uplifting, which requires replacing negative thoughts with eternal promises. Surrendering something to God is only the first step. The second is protecting your mind so worry doesn't return. It's like cleaning a house. If you don't put something good in its place, the mess will come back. That's why replacing negative thoughts with biblical promises is essential. When anxiety tries to creep in, you can counter it by remembering, "The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want." Psalm 23 verse 1. This practice is most effective when it becomes a conscious habit. Instead of feeding on news that only increases restlessness, choose to listen to worship music that strengthens faith, read texts that build hope, and meditate on verses about God's care. Over time, this exchange shapes your mind to react differently to the same challenges. The beauty is that when your thoughts are filled with truth, there's no room for anxiety's lies. It's an active process, almost like tending a garden. You pull out weeds and plant new seeds every day. And in this fertile soil, one of the most powerful habits for keeping peace begins to grow: gratitude, even when circumstances haven't yet changed. Gratitude is like a shield against anxiety. When you choose to focus on what God has already given you instead of what's still missing, something changes inside you. It's impossible to keep your heart full of worry when it's busy recognizing blessings. And it doesn't have to be anything huge. The air you breathe, the bed you sleep in, the friend who comforts you, all are proof of God's daily care. Being thankful even in the middle of problems is an act of faith that disarms fear. It's saying, "I don't have all the answers yet, but I thank you because I know you're in control." This posture reinforces trust and prevents your mind from getting trapped in the cycle of complaint. And the more gratitude is practiced, the more natural it becomes to spot God's presence in details you used to overlook. Gratitude also transforms the atmosphere around you. Thankful people spread hope, inspire optimism, and create space for others to feel strengthened too. It's like turning on a light in a dark room. It doesn't change the room's structure, but it changes entirely how it's seen. And this light shines even brighter when surrender is not partial but total. Many people say they've given their worries to God, but in practice, they've only placed part of the weight in His hands and held on to the rest. It's like asking a friend to carry a heavy suitcase but still keeping one of the handles. This kind of partial surrender keeps anxiety alive because the heart is still trying to control what should already be under His care. Total surrender is different. It's letting go of every reservation, even those small enough we think aren't worth bothering God with. It's recognizing that He can handle not just the major crises but also the smallest details of daily life. This complete yielding brings immense freedom, taking off your shoulders the weight of having to fix everything alone. And the interesting thing is, when someone lives in this full surrender, the result is visible. They become lighter, more present, and even their relationships start to change. After all, when the heart is free from anxiety, there's more room for love, patience, and care for others. And that has a deep impact on relationships. When the heart is free from excessive worry, it becomes more open to love and understanding. Patience grows, words are softer, and listening becomes more attentive. It's as if the absence of anxiety makes room for God's presence to manifest in daily interactions, bringing peace not only to the one living it but also to everyone around them. Healthy relationships thrive in an environment where trust and hope are constant. When someone lives resting in God's care, they pass that security on to others. Conflicts that once would have been fueled by tension and defensiveness start to be resolved with calm and clarity. Even the tone of conversations changes because there's no rush to win an argument but a desire to build bridges. This impact goes beyond family or friendships. In the workplace, church, or even with strangers, a person living in this state of peace becomes a point of light. It's impossible not to notice the difference God's presence makes in someone who has truly surrendered their worries. And when this lifestyle is practiced, it not only blesses the one living it but also inspires those who watch. Now that you know this path, the question is, what will you do with it? Will you keep carrying the weight that steals your peace, or will you finally hand everything to God and experience the rest He promised? The choice is before you, and each passing day is another chance to live with more faith, hope, and courage. Think about this. Which worries are taking up too much space in your mind today? What if you decided right now to place them in the Lord's hands and not take them back? Imagine the freedom of waking up tomorrow without that burden and with the certainty that God's care is already at work. If this message spoke to you, leave a comment below, share your experience and inspire others to also break free from anxiety. And don't forget, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to keep learning and being strengthened in your walk of faith. The next step in your transformation starts now.